Hi, everybody, and welcome to Mindfulness Mondays. And today we have a really great topic that I think we all know we need to do it, huh, Beverly, but we just don't. And that has to do with the whole issue of sleep, how to get a deeper sleep, and why it is so important. I think some of these things might surprise you in terms of what you have to share. Hey, Beverly, how are you?
I'm fine, Lenny. So good to see you again, as always. And
Good to
good
see you
morning,
too.
everyone who
Good
is
morning.
present and who'll be looking at this later, whenever time today. Lennis said this is important, and it's important to me on so many levels. Sleep. Sleep is something that many of us we kind of take for granted. It's a little give and take with it. We either do or we don't, without really understanding the significance of what that means. For me, the absence of sleep or the minimalization I put to sleep led to me having heart failure. And this came from great research at a major medical center that did an extensive sleep study and watched my pattern, but also took an extensive history of how I lived my life, allowing myself maybe 3 hours of sleep a night for a number of years. But ultimately, what that resulted in is a internal level of exhaustion, a kind of insidious exhaustion that I didn't even see or recognize myself. We kind of know we're tired, we do a little something, something, sleep, nap, sit down, rest for a moment. But understanding the importance of sleep, I totally missed that. So here's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about what actually happens if we get good sleep. What are the consequences of not getting good sleep? And then I'll even talk about some of the interruptions that interferes with us getting the kind of sleep we need. And then I'll have some suggestions and recommendations of things that we should explore, things we should try to improve the quality and the depth of our sleep. You also, those of you who know and you have also struggled with this, and I still struggle with it, I still am always working at it. By all means, add some suggestions to our suggestion box for others to just build their repertoire of strategies for quality sleep. See, when we sleep, sleep allows the body to heal and even repair blood vessels, and the heart actually gets to repair. Sleep allows our endocrine systems. Uh, they actually depend on sleep, and so too is the production of our hormones. It depends on sleep. Sleep restores the chemical balance in our bodies and our minds. Do you remember my talk about toxic stress? It changes the whole body mind chemistry, which we face, particularly those of you on the front line, first responders, the medical profession, social workers, all of you teachers, all of you who are working in stressful situations every single day. Sleep is the allowance for the chemical balance in your body to restore itself. Our brains form new connections when we sleep, which improves our memory, retention, coordination in our bodies, accuracy, even our reaction times when there's situations that could be dangerous. You know, like sometimes I'll be driving and a car wants to overtake you and it almost swipes you. But if your reaction is slow, that's an accident. If your reaction is sharp and it's on time, we could kind of divert and move to a more defensive move in our driving. There could be any number of things, but sleep allows for all of that to happen. Sleep deprivation, that's the opposite of getting quality sleep, can and will lead to serious health risks. Some are minor, some are major, some are near fatal, and some are actually fatal. Some of those are some forms of cancer. It increases the risk for that. I actually read about that when I was doing some research after the second heart failure of a doctor who had some rare forms of cancer, and then she did elaborate research to study that. So major incidences of those who work in highly stressful fields. There's a risk for diabetes. There's a risk for heart disease. It shortens the lifespan. It really does. It quadruples our risk for stroke. Not doubles. Hear me when I say it. I said it quadruples our risk for stroke. We lose brain tissue when we don't have adequate sleep. It increases inflammation in our bodies. And inflammation, don't forget that those are wonderful hosting areas for bacteria and virus that kind of lodge there. Without adequate sleep, there's less focus. I'm repeating this again. Memory problems. You got a lot of data in your mind, and sleep. This is almost is like a magical thing. I imagine when we sleep, the vast amounts of data we hold for our lives and other people's lives, it gets to be filed someplace so you can kind of access that information when you need it. But that happens during good sleep. We're more likely to get emotional. We can become very clumsy and accident prone. And I know I will fall up the stairs when I don't have good sleep. We're more likely to catch cold. Uh, there's an obesity risk. We are hungrier. We could eat more. I remember a couple of doctors saying to me over the years, because I, struggle, I'm up and down with my weight, mostly up with my weight. And they said, if you just sleep more, you would lose some of that weight. Um, Poor sleep also is linked to depression, uh, or seesawing of emotions and mood swings. We have a hard time. I could go from being okay to emotional in a sad labile way just in a matter of seconds. Or I could get pretty angry. It's something that's seemingly unprovoked, but it's hard to kind of regulate that part of ourselves without adequate sleep. So now let's talk a little bit about some of the things that interfere with our sleep. I'm always reminding people in my classes on compassion fatigue, secondary and vicarious trauma, and I'm talking to all human service providers, but I'm also talking to parents with children with the multiple complexities of your responsibilities that you deal with. We got enormous tasks to do. We always have now with the COVID situation. You're trying to juggle so much more, which means that every night we go to bed with unfinished and unresolved matters and concerns. Every night, our minds are just flooded with stuff. And this is where I talk to people about this little simple little task of doing something like taking stuff out of your head and putting it on a piece of paper. I tell people all the time I use notepads, I use lists, all kinds of little sticky pads, and then I kind of condense them and wipe them away and make little check marks. But take stuff out of your head and put it on a notepad so that your mind is just not swarming with thoughts all through the night. I know that I could wake up in the middle of the night, as many of you will, 2:30, 3:30 in the morning, and I'm running the list. Got to do this, got to drop this off, got to pick this up, I got that, over and over, and the list starts all over again. So you're not sleeping. You're not sleeping. We also, as I said before, we have complex scheduling and our family life responsibilities. Many of us have, fluctuating work shifts and schedules, maybe doing 2 or 3 schedules, but they also change, and that also is exacerbated by the COVID situation. We're doing things that we're not necessarily accustomed to do, and it can never seem to do enough, not in our minds, not in our minds. But this also weighs and interferes with sleep. I remember, and this is with people who work with people who are traumatized or victimized, or those really tragic and chaotic and crisis-driven situations that people find. These situations, when we work with them, it's a part of our daily responsibility, our caseloads, running out to handle emergencies. Uh, it causes sleep disturbances when we carry the traumatic materials faced during the day to bed with us without being able to, even knowing that we need to do something, say something to offload that traumatic material that we took on while we were kind of rescuing, saving, trying to prevent, trying to be in the healing process. I imagine those nurses and doctors in those hospitals, they bring that stuff home and it goes to bed when they can't save the people. They see the suffering constantly. But we need to somehow figure out how to disengage from these matters. It's not like you stop caring for people, but there comes a point, for me, I call it, for me, it's like a little spiritual thing too. Sometimes somebody told me to say, well, Lord, I've done what I could do. I've helped the best way I can at this moment. Now I kind of turn this over to you this evening, and I'll pick up again tomorrow and continue the service. It's another way, in a more clinical way of looking at cognitive restructuring. What do you say to yourself at the end of a very, very difficult day when you tried your best? And again, our tendency to never feel that that's enough. That goes to bed, it goes to sleep, and our minds wrestle with it. It stays in dialogue with it. It's trying to resolve it. It's trying to fix it. It's trying to figure out the next thing to do about it. There's no way that in that state of mind that we're getting sound sleep. I want us also to notice, and this is another level of practice, uh, if things we eat and how late we eat may interfere with our sleep. And you may want to keep a journal on this and find out what. Now that could change from day to day because your state of mind, the chemical reaction in your body could be obviously is different one day from the next. But make note that some things that you can consume kind of late. I've been told time and time again, and I try. When I was on the road, I would eat, come in from the airport sometimes and eat very, very late. I'm trying my best to stay up at 2 or 3 hours to digest before I go to sleep. But this is something we work on. Journal it, keep track of it, and adjust those habits so that you can figure out when you have the best point to get some sleep. Also, adjust your sleep schedule. And you're going to have to do this multiple times. I find that if I go to sleep or go to bed at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, I'm probably going to wake up at 1:30 or 2:30 in the morning. And that is horrible because I don't get sleepy again until 5, and that's time to get up. So that messes up. And I know I gauge as much as I can when I'm at certain states of mind. I had certain kind of days that I try my best to stay up. Um, um, and particularly if I'm not particularly sleepy until 10, maybe even 11, and I get to sleep through the night, at least until 4:30 in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning. But you got to work with that. You got to work with that. Also, those of you who have young children in the house, particularly the babies, and they're waking up at different times, just tweak those schedules to try to work in sync as best you can so that you get your sleep. I've said to parents, and I know there's a conflict with work schedule, but sometimes uh, you might find it more advantageous to get some sleep when the baby is sleeping. That's the time to kind of sit down and take a little nap or something like that. But work on it, work on it, work on it. It's no easy thing to do, but you want to, as best you can, to get for your whole household to be on a consistent sleep or at least lay down and rest schedule. I remember my parents sending my sister and I to bed at 8 o'clock, and I didn't care if we were asleep or not, but we were in that bed at 8 o'clock. We may have had our little books and our little flashlights laying under the sheet, under the blankets in the dark, but do it. Figure it out. And then sometimes I had to change my mattress. I couldn't afford a whole mattress, so I got uh, uh, a mattress pad, something that softens, or change your pillows so that you feel comfortable in your bed. Work on that. Look at that. Evaluate all of those things to see what's helping. So, how do we quiet our minds and our spirits so that we can get quality sleep? I'm going to tell you right off the bat. I begin with my 3 R's. My 3 R's are always critical to do: my release, my reboot, my recharge. Uh, it has been said, don't go to sleep angry. That's really true. Don't go to bed angry, actually. Uh, you want to speak out those things that are weighing heavy on you. You might just say it to somebody, no great detail, but just get it off your chest. Some people like to journal, put it out of your mind, but get it out of your head and put it on a piece of paper. Like I said, put it on a notepad, put it in a journal book. But to release it, say it. Maybe pray about it, but say it out loud. The reboot. Now, before bed, you want to be careful not to overstimulate yourself, but a stretch may be useful. I can, because I could go to bed kind of achy from sitting in this chair the great bulk of the day working online or whatever the case is. And some of us have more labelsome kind of work. Breathe deeply. Breathe deeply. Remember how it regulates the whole neural system, the neurophysiology system, to breathe deeply. Uh, I like to periodically remember after a hard day, when I get to the end of the day and I say, oh God, what did I accomplish? Make a list of things I'm grateful for. Remember when I talk about gratitude, how healing that very, very process is. Write down 5 or 10 things that you are grateful for. And the small things matter just as much as the so-called big things. Then the recharge. Recharge is obviously sleep. Sleep is the opportunity for the mind and the body to restore. Begin by being calm, calming yourself down before bed. That might be softening lights, cutting off things, shutting down things, making your list. You got your plan for the next day, settle down. It could be some nice, soft, gentle music in your space. Now, I encourage all of us, particularly in the fields of human services, again, where we work in high stress jobs, but I think everybody experiencing this era of COVID 19 under enormous stress, I encourage you to sometimes just listen to sounds. You know, the strings, the waterfalls, the flutes, the whales, the whatever, the sounds, but not to be in dialogue. I mean, there's times I love music. I love music and I love certain songs and I want to sing along with him. And then there's times that I need not to have the lyrics because our minds stay in dialogue with the lyrics. I'm singing with Aretha. I'm singing with Barry White, if that makes any sense to you. So you want to listen to the sounds so you can just quiet the mind. I can't say enough the significance of that. We want to pay attention also to reading, maybe. Some people that's not useful. To me, it has been useful from time to time. And the reason I said that is because sometimes I want to turn off the other thoughts, the negative, the traumatic material that I've taken on a day. And I don't read my, my science books or my social work books or the history or what's going on in the world. I read something that's pleasurable, something that's fun, something that's funny. I'm big on science fiction. Don't ask me why. It's not too weird. I like to do that, but it kind of codes switches. It takes me out of the things that I want to cut off for now until tomorrow and get absorbed in a book. That may work for you, that may not work for you, but I do also find this too, that when I'm under exhaustion, that insidious, unawares exhaustion, and I read a book, I wind up falling asleep with that book, and I just go on to sleep, and it doesn't disturb me. It doesn't disturb me. Um, I want you to. I want to. What I'm talking about reading. I read years ago, and my wonderful sister friend down in Central California advised me against reading from the electronic books like the Kindle, that light fools the body. So I did some research on that, and yes, it does. A lot of scientists says that when those lights on that reader is there, it fools the body about the time of day, and so that may disturb your sleep. If you're going to read at night, like I like to sometimes, just got a good old paper book, back book, or a hardcover book, paper, not the lighted system. You can use that at a different time. I also highly appreciate fragrant soaks in baths. That is so soothing to me. I like because I sometimes get a little aches from sitting. The Epsom salt with the lavender in it. So I like my soaks. I like my soaks. I like to stretch and get the tension out of my body wherever it is. I address those spots and stretch in those areas where there's a little ache and a little stiffness so that when I lay down, I'm comfortable in the bed. It is important to me also, and maybe for you, to clean the air in your room. I have one of those things like purifier because one of the horrible experiences for me is to be sleeping and inhale, and it's like dust particles hit the back of the roof of your mouth, and you wake up like god awful choke. So clean the air in your room so you have that opportunity to just breathe easy. Um, Another thing to do is aromatherapy. I love it. I love it. Find your fragrances, test out some fragrances that you like. They could be in that little air mister in your room. Sometimes I'd like to. Now, you got to pay attention that it's something that's not going to cause you allergies, but I have these little spray mists or these little powders sometimes that I just sprinkle on my sheets after they're freshly washed. But that is something that is very helpful for me to sleep as well. The fragrance and the softness and the comfort and the temperature in my room, but the clean air in my room. Now, I know many of you have children, and particularly babies, that may disturb your sleep. We got circumstances, we got family members, maybe taking care of parents in the home or a sick relative, and those schedules are very, very complex and difficult to maneuver around. But I say to you to if that is interfering with your night's sleep, I raised two children who had health problems. My the son I gave birth to had multiple surgeries. I adopted a girl who had some health challenges. And I remember laying in bed listening to my children breathe from time to time. Someone sleeping. Plus, I had the weight of the work on my mind too. And it came to my mind sometimes when I was aware of how tired I was from the lack of sleep, that any point of the day you might get really, really drowsy in a way that you're acutely aware of. And given the circumstances, if there's nothing that requires your immediate attention or keeping your eyes on the babies or whatever the case is, I learned to kind of surrender. And that was a hard thing for me to do, but to surrender to a need to just close my eyes, not to fight it like I used to. I used to sit at the desk and just be rocking and trying to force myself to stay awake, but to surrender to the need to nap. People are in different places with napping. I have known friends who could take what they would call a power nap, and I was also always envious about that. But I was always afraid too, if I napped, that I would sleep too long and miss an important part of the day. That was also a concern for me. But I'm saying to you that if that's all that you have at a given time, just sit back for a moment and close your eyes. You may want to set a little timer on your iPhone, your cell phone, so that you could sleep for just a few moments, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, all things considered. But allow yourself to do that. Uh, any sleep is better than no sleep. In the end, optimum health happens when we do quiet our minds and calm our spirits uh, and sleep soundly. It does get to happen. Of course, eating clean also plays a big role, but that's a whole nother conversation. But work toward improving your health, understanding the risks, understanding the detriment of not sleeping, and go through all these things over and over, test things out, try things out, see what's working for you, and then even then something will come up and you have to adjust it again. But our sleep is absolutely imperative to our wellness. So that's it for today. Can't hear you, Lenny.
Okay, there you go. Thank you. That was just full of wonderful tips and advice. And while you were speaking, there were some comments. I showed them while you were speaking. I don't know if you showed
I
them.
didn't really read them.
Okay, I wanted to show them to you. Some of the comments that were made. One in particular that I thought was really interesting was about nurses and the fact that they are normally empaths and highly sensitive, and they have a hard time letting
Mhm,
go of the cares of the world.
mhm.
And you had mentioned some techniques, but specifically, could you address this when it comes to nurses
Part of what I
specifically?
want to say, because I'm paying a great deal of attention to what's happening to nurses in the face of COVID. And I'm feeling, I used to work alongside of nurses in two medical centers for over 23 years, 16 in one and then another area. And I've always observed the stress, the strain, the burgeoning push that they do in their efforts to help, to save, to heal, to carry out the instructions or the treatment protocols. And it's relentless. And now
Mm.
we have COVID-19. And there, I want to say no nurse could do all that they would love to be able to do, they desire to do, that they trained to do. And that's an awful place to be. They're being impacted so negatively. And what I want to say about that, and I want to have a larger conversation with nurses, maybe on the podcasts that are coming up,
Hmm.
is I'm going to ask you to do a little cognitive shift, a little cognitive switch, and appreciate what we appreciate. Because I've been in the hospital several times myself with my children needing your care, with myself, is that you would like to maximize your care. And you do that beautifully without regarding the importance of your presence. Under a time of extreme pain, I remember a nurse, she just took my hand while people were working to try to resuscitate me.
Mm.
And regardless of all those other people flurrying around, because I was crashing, she held my hand and I just glimpsed at her and I said, I'm going to be okay.
Mm.
Because of the expression on her face, the love on her face, just that thought. She couldn't do nothing else but reach through that crowd. Another nurse at another time went and got a blanket. I think she had microwaved it. They used to do that in the day and put it over my feet. She said, are you cold, dear? I want you to appreciate your presence, because in all things, regardless of what we can't do, what you can't do under the magnitude of this COVID situation, you get to give something, and that is the presence and the experience of you being
Yes.
there, carrying the expression on your faces that says, I'm here, I matter. I wish I could do more, but I'm here. And that's, it means so much to people. And so I want you to be able to say to yourself at the end of the day, what did I get to give? And get your journal. I said, I got to get that person some water. I got to adjust that oxygen machine. I got to put a warmer blanket over them. I got to sit with them just for a moment before I ran to the next bed. I got to hold their hand. I got to wipe their mouth just a little bit. And I want you to think about what you get to give. You get to give love, give
That's
care,
beautiful.
you get to give your empathy, and that's priceless. It'll never be enough for you, but I want you to remember that. It matters so much to that person laying there helpless.
That's a very good point, because the things that a nurse might do on a day-to-day basis, they may not really stop and think about the
They don't.
fact that they could be grateful. That's something they can be grateful for, that they were able to extend
Mhm.
that kindness, or
Mhm.
to extend or to empathize with one of their patients. And it's something that most nurses just kind of do off the cuff, but it really is
It's
a gift.
automatic to them. That's who they're
Yes, but
wired
it's
to
still
do.
a
It's how
gift to the
they
other
learn.
person. It's a gift to the other person. And you should recognize yourself. I worked with nurses for about 10 years as
Mhm.
in charge of recruitment for nurses. And it was interesting, because I began to see two different kinds of nurses begin to come up as the economy changed, and where men started getting more involved in nursing,
Oh yeah, yeah.
or other women who had another career and then decided to get involved in nursing because that one had STEMI. This is about two
You're
beginning to
frozen.
dip. And you have those nurses who have complete and total empathy, and you have those other nurses that kind of run it more like a business. And I'm not going to say which one is best, but I can
No,
say
but
that
even
those who
even them, the ones who appear to run it like a business, it's a
Mhm.
point where you've experienced so much pain of others that a kind of little wall goes up just a little bit.
Yes, I was going to ask, so what about that wall?
Don't
It,
mistake that as callousness. It's a protective guard. It could look like there's some apathy. It could look like it's some detachment, but no. When people you can get slammed with too much pain that you absorb from others, and you kind of put that there so you can stay on your feet and keep on going. So, was there another comment? One more?
yeah, there was another one that had to do in general with sleep deprivation. And he was just saying, or she, I think it was a male, the deprivation is a real culprit.
That's
Um,
what almost took me off the planet.
yes.
A lot of
Mhm.
people. Sleep deprivation is devastating to the human body, as I mentioned before. Your heart, everything is adjusted, modified, balanced in sleep. In the absence of, starts a cycle where other systems have to kick in and compensate because another one cannot function because you're not getting the rest that it needs to restore. And it's a downhill slide. It's an
Yes.
absolute down. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Beverly. Once again, wonderful content and information, things that I think people want to know about. I want to make sure that they know how to get in touch with you. There's several ways. They can go to your Facebook, and that's facebook.com/beverly.kyer.1. Take a snapshot of that and go ahead and friend her. And also, you can go directly to her website at the um, wellnessreset.net, and there you can find out more information about what Beverly does, how to get in touch with her. And she has 2 books that you can purchase as well, all around how to be well for those who are caregivers and basically people who are helpers, first responders, human service providers. And please let us know if you are viewing this through the replay, this hashtag replay, and let us know that you're listening to this to the replay, because we really want to know what you're thinking about and the fact that you're listening. And also, please share your thoughts and your comments about this broadcast. And if there's anything in particular that you would like Beverly to talk about that has to do with wellness, compassion fatigue, stress and anxiety, and all the different kinds of things that you might experience as a human service provider, please put those in the comments as well. Anything that you would like to hear her talk about. And we'll be glad to do a Mindfulness Monday episode on one of those topics. Well, Beverly, thank you so much for sharing with us. It's been wonderful just listening, and I've learned so much. And wow, I have a whole bunch of notes here.
Right. So also, I just want to remind you this also for family caregivers as well.
Yes, caregivers, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
I'm glad to be with you, folks, and I'll see you again next Monday at 9:30 a.m. on Mindfulness Monday.
Very good. Thank you all.
Well. God bless.
God bless. Bye-bye.